Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Dr. Leadership Lounge. Today, I'm very fortunate to have Brian Smith, who is the founder of IWatch's security and brand Ascent Media, and also the founder and creator of the 5 Things podcast. You can check out the 5 Things podcast on YouTube, Rumble, and also the Apple Podcast application on your phones. Brian, it is really, really awesome to have you on the show. How you doing today?
Fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity, Brent.
You bet. So just for everyone's information, I was put in touch with a mutual friend of Brian, and we've had several conversations and kind of hit it off. And I said, hey, man, would you please come on the podcast? I'd love to share your stories with the listeners out there. Brian's got a real interesting background, been a groundbreaking entrepreneur for years and years and years now, as you can tell, owning a couple of businesses himself. And Brian, how I normally kind of start off is just tell us your early life a little bit. What was your upbringing like, and what was it that led you to have this kind of entrepreneurial spirit deep down inside? Was it something from the beginning or something you saw when you were young? Tell us a little bit about your early life.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first off, I grew up on the West Coast, born in California, but primarily Phoenix, Arizona is what I claim. Although I did do about a year and a half in high school in San Bernardino, kind of the armpit of California.
I am familiar.
Graduated high school at 17, and 13 days after that, I was in Fort Dix, New Jersey for the Army.
God bless you.
So I wanted to get out there. I wanted to get started. Primarily a single mom most of my life growing up. Dad was never really part of the picture, the biological father. And I had a great uncle who was definitely a great male, kind of that old school, probably never told us he loved us, him and his son, just manly man, hunting, camping. So I'm really grateful to him because I got that kind of that alpha male side, but I also got my mom's side.
Sure, the nurturing side was there, and the kind of, I don't want to say leadership, but the keep you between the lines, accountability, those types of things. Which, hey, let's face it, watching the news these days, that's a big missing piece in society today. Just look around us, right? People may not like me saying that out loud, but the two parental figure families are very, very, very important and lacking in a lot of people's lives, unfortunately.
I agree with you 100%. I think that masculinity is a little bit under attack, and I'm okay with toxic masculinity being under attack, but I'm all for femininity and I'm all for masculinity. I think it's a beautiful combination.
I do too. It's why it was made that way, right? It's why it was made that way.
I have to assume there was a plan. Everything worked for a long time.
It did. You
got 8 billion of us running around right now. So,
exactly right. There's been some affection somewhere.
Right.
Now, so you 13 days after high school, joined in the military, and you and I touched on this, and I don't want to run you off on that question right away if you had a little bit more to add to it, but I do want to make sure you tell the story about how joining the military kind of worked out, because I just think that's a funny one.
Yeah, and you know what? I apologize. I don't think I answered the original question about the entrepreneur spirit. I believe that growing up, I do believe there's probably something to DNA or your destiny kind of thing to it. Yeah. However, I can look back and I remember there were times, and for the younger crowd, they're not going to know some of these names, but like I wanted, it was skater stuff back then. It's like I wanted some Guess jeans. I wanted a Guess jean jacket. I wanted nice things at an early age, and I knew instinctively, I think I knew that my mom couldn't really afford, too much excess. Or maybe the brand name, the Stussy shirt or the Varney glasses or whatever.
Right.
But I was very attracted to that type of stuff at a young age. And I didn't want to ask her because I felt bad. So it caused me to think about, how can I get this? And this is the beautiful thing about our brain. We have to learn to ask ourselves the right questions.
And I can touch
on that later.
Yep.
But when we make statements to ourselves, we shut the brain down. We say, well, my mom can't afford that. But if I say, how can I get it? And there's an ethics filter that has to come in there too. But when you ask yourself, how can I get it? You start thinking about things. So I was doing things at a very young age. I'll give you just kind of a quick example of
Sure.
I was wheeling and dealing in baseball cards and sports cards at a very young age, doing card shows and buying and selling. And,
How cool is
you know,
that?
that started as early as, I want to say third, fourth grade, something like that. And then when I lived in an apartment at one point with my mom, La Palma Apartments in Phoenix, Arizona,
They
I
sound
came up.
wonderful.
They were okay. They were actually pretty good. They
La
weren't too bad.
Palma. I like it.
La Palma. Um, I created this little business, and I went door to door, offering to take people's trash, because the way it worked is you had to walk your trash all the way to the trash bins, which
Wow.
was a little bit of a hike. So I created a business for people to where they could just put their trash outside of the door, and it was a quarter a day. I would run it out, and I billed them weekly.
That
And
is
so
hysterical. It's
so I
hysterical great.
it's I had like 20 customers, and you figure it was
Hey man, that's
was it
$5 a
$20 a
week.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Or a
20
quarter a day
customers.
each. Yeah, excuse me. That's every day for 20 customers. That's awesome.
Yeah.
$5 times, man, you were rolling.
So so I would make my rounds, usually in the evening time, and I did that for a while, and I was making money, and then I would buy sports cards with it, and I was trying to, buy low, sell high, and
Sure.
trying to. I was real big on Mark Grace back then. He was my favorite baseball player, and Chris Sabo stole Rookie of the Year from him. So I was, dumping all Chris Sabo's cards because I didn't think
Just
he
out
was
of
any good.
spite.
But that was real fun for me back then, and there was definitely the making money side of it, which I was very motivated
You were
and
hustling early. That's awesome.
hustling early, and I would buy stuff that I wanted. And
So I have a very important question for the crowd out there that collected baseball and sports cards. Did you chew the gum or did you just throw the Topps gum right out?
I definitely chewed the gum.
There you go.
I
Some people,
definitely
it's a
chewed the
love or
gum.
hate deal, and today's
Yeah.
gum is so much better than what that stuff was. But I was a huge George Brett fan, so this was all before social media. So those were your heroes, right? It wasn't an influencer that was half naked on the screen for the girls to try to resemble these days. It's really sad what heroes look like these days
Sure.
to people. But it's funny that you say you created this door to door just to attach. My mom tells the story all the time. So I was a late kid, and the youngest sibling to me, my sister, she lives down in Texas. Her boyfriend at the time and now husband, happily married for 40 some years now. He would read meters, electric meters, and gas meters and water meters for the city in the summer. And I saw him do this. Well, at 4, 5, 6 years old, I had a pen and paper, and I would go around and read neighbors' meters. I'd knock on the doors, and they'd let me in, and I'd go down, and I'd had a flashlight, and I'd go down, and the whole neighborhood just knew I was doing it. Now, I wasn't smart enough to charge, but that door to door, you were much smarter than me at an early age. That's just awesome.
It's just, I think the entrepreneurial mindset stemmed out of, I want something, so how can I get it? And so
Yeah,
I think that thought process started at a very early age, unconsciously probably, that if I want it, I just need to figure out how to add value to somebody else so they can pay me.
that's awesome. I have somebody comes up to me. I lead a sales organization, and the reason I'm saying this story is because you went out and got it, right? You became effective. Someone will come up and say, as a commission salesperson, salaries plus commission, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a raise. And I said, I'd like to talk to you about a raise too. Your raise will become effective as soon as you do.
Right.
And you were effective young, so that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's the great thing about sales is, there's these conversations about, uh, equal pay.
Hmm.
And I would say that everybody's for equal pay. It's just, what are we actually talking about? And the great thing about sales is that you get to choose your pay. You're getting paid what you're worth.
That's right.
And in a lot of scenarios, let's say. but you can always
high
give yourself
propensity.
a raise.
Yep, that's right. That's right. There's no one knows their value more than the one pricing their own deliverable, right? You run into
Sure.
these situations. You own a couple businesses. There's always someone that's willing to do it for less, and that's what I say to people. Hey, if inexpensive and lack of value is what you're looking for, I'd be happy to put you in contact with several people that can sell stuff really cheap.
Right.
You know,
It's
just
true.
just neuter it cut it off at the legs early, and many times people will succumb to the embarrassment that you've just given them and come your way.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
off to the.
the
I'm
other
sorry. Go
thing,
ahead.
but I'm sorry, before we wrap up on that, the other thing I wanted to say is that I don't know that anybody gets paid what they're actually worth. And I want to explain that for a second.
Yeah.
So if I work for an organization and if I make Rico $1 million a year, am I worth $1 million a year? Not really, because Rico has to make money.
That's right.
There's overhead, there's, all the stuff, there's future investments, there's R&D. So I don't know that any of us actually get paid what we're worth, because whoever even as a business owner, I don't get paid what I'm worth. I got to
You got to
pay
take
people.
care of. You got building. You
Invest.
got to rent. You got to take care of insurance for other people. All those things.
Government, we're all carrying the
Oh,
government around
baby.
on our back.
Yeah. Until June. Until June.
So so that's kind of a mindset thing too, is I want to provide max value. I want to give an organization the best I can give them, and I want to be compensated in a way that shows they really appreciate me. And
That's right.
if you don't feel that your organization is providing that, and it's really important to always look at the intangibles too, work-life balance. One of the things Sean, who introduced us, one of the things I really admire about Rico from an outsider is the freedom and flexibility that he has. And he says that's really a cultural thing from the whole organization. So
It is.
never discount how important that is. I'd rather I could have made a lot more money over the last decade as an employee for a big company. But I wouldn't have anywhere near the freedom or quality of life or things like that. So let's say I could have doubled my pay. It's not worth it to me.
There is a balance. There's no doubt.
There's a balance.
And I'll tell you,
sure.
and over the last 3 years, the COVID debacle, terrible situation in the world. How it happened doesn't matter. I think that's coming to light, but it showed people the value of the other side of life. Working from home, getting more time with their kids, those types of things have enlightened people to that balance. And I always tell people too, I want you happy. If this place doesn't make you happy, go get happy. I want you to be happy.
Right.
Because then it really does become a job. But this work from home, you have to really be careful. It used to be I work from home, and it's easy to become I live at work. So you also have to balance that freedom of working from home, not having to go to an office, only work in one room in the house, only spend specific times on it, break away. And as long as the results are there, I always tell people it's ETR. You earn the right to have that flexibility too through performance and results. But that's great. And outside in, hey, we've got freckles, but the culture is a really good thing. And Sean is one of the best, and very fortunate to have him on our team. So that's awesome. So you kind of finish up high school. You got this entrepreneurial spirit. You look around. And you and I think a friend kind of make a decision to try something out. Tell that story a little bit on how you ended up in the military. I think it's a funny one.
Well, I knew I was going in the military. About halfway through my high school year, I actually signed up. And one of the things I love about my mom is because she had to sign off on me signing up at 17, and she knew that I had decided I was going to do it. So she was going to give me the freedom to make the mistake or make my decision. And I really appreciated that. But I signed up, and then I had a friend who also maybe I inspired that he wanted to go in the military. So it's all right, let's go down and take our test together, which is called the ASVAB, or it was, I don't know what it's called now. But we go down there, and this is where the recruiters, this is where they kind of get you. And I didn't really, I'm a 17-year-old kid.
You haven't given this a lot of thought.
I want to shoot guns. I want to jump out of planes. I want to, I want to be Hua. I want to be all you can be. The
Yeah, you want
commercials,
to be
right?
GI Joe, man.
Totally. And so we go down there and we're signing up and we take the test and for whatever reason I came out first and I'm meeting with the person and my friend Jeremy had a he wanted to be a chef. And so he wanted to do the military too, but he wanted to learn how to be a cook.
Hmm.
And so when I was talking to the recruiter, I'm like, I don't, really want to be a cook. I want to be in the military. I want to jump out of planes. I want to,
Right.
I want to shoot stuff. I want to, I want to be badass, right?
Right.
And he's like, well, you can do all that. We'll put you here, this and that. But it's like, you can learn this job. You can learn how to cook. And it's like, because that's what Jeremy wants to do, and you guys can go together. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty good. So the picture that he painted was like,
Real
I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I'm gonna know what berries we can eat in the
in the jungle,
middle of
right?
Afghanistan or something.
Survival
I had
skills.
no idea. Right. So this is 1992 as well. But so that being said, I went ahead and signed up because that's what Jeremy wanted to do. And fortunately, I did 3 years, not a longer term.
Yep.
But I got airborne as part of my,
Right.
training and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. So I got all the stuff that I wanted to. And Jeremy comes out of there and he's like, man, I failed the test. I'm like, you what? So anyway, so
Enjoy the kitchen.
I get shipped off to the military doing the job that he wanted to do.
Oh,
And it was definitely, I, I jumped out of planes. I actually was fortunate enough to go to air assault school. So I did division boards for the 82nd Airborne Division. Like I did a lot. I really feel like I made the most of it for
yeah,
the
that's
most
right.
part.
That's right.
Although I did spend some time in some cook whites, which I
Your
despised.
your AIT, it used to be called. I think now it's oh gosh, what's the new acronym? But
Well,
advanced
AIT is the school, the
advanced individual training, right?
Yep.
They've changed
And the
that
MOS
acronym
is the
on me.
job.
MOS is the
Okay.
job. That's right. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Sorry. Thank you. That's
And
right.
that stood for military occupational specialty, if I remember correctly.
Yep, you are correct. You are correct.
But we ended up, I mean, the military, the military worked us like absolute dogs because we were in to be a cook and be in the 82nd Airborne Division. Apparently, there weren't a lot of people that wanted that combination, which I completely understand. And so we were always short staffed. We would work, I'm not exaggerating, we worked 12, 13, 14 days straight regularly.
Yeah.
And the thing about it was we had a real job in the military, and that was like running a restaurant,
Which
running
is
the
not
chow
easy.
hall.
People think that's easy. It is not easy.
It's a full-time job and then some. And then we had to do all of our training outside of that. So like a lot of these other jobs in the military, you training was your job.
Right.
Whereas with us, and this is the way I felt anyway, it was like we had this full-time job of cooking and I ended up in a short period of time, thank God, because I really didn't like cooking or cleaning the grills, that kind of stuff. But I ended up running the dining facility for the sergeant, the master sergeant that ran the dining facility. I ended up handling the account. I ended up ordering the food, rations, picking up rations,
You
stocking
learned
everything.
a lot. You learned a
So
lot.
I feel like it gave me a little bit of a business of the same things that I deal with when I started a security company. It's
Right.
ordering product, it's sourcing things better. It's
Handling inventory, just in time in it, handling cash
exactly.
flow, et cetera. It wasn't your cash, but it's still handling cash flow and budgets and all of that.
Making sure you had enough food.
Well, yeah, the
Making sure
simple things, yeah.
there's the menu, and we were balancing the budget. And I do want to throw this curveball in on you about government because government is just consistently letting us down in so many ways. But
Ugh.
one of the first examples that I saw of government and why the government is constantly overspending, I remember getting chewed out. My captain, his name was Captain June. He came over and he was chewing out Sergeant Gomez because I was managing the account. And Sergeant Gomez, he really didn't have to look at it because I just ran it kind of like a business, I guess.
Sure.
And we were sitting there. We had like $60,000 extra in our account.
Spend it or
And
lose
it's
it.
like I was using it efficiently. Like nobody was hurting. We've got great meals. Like everything was good. And we came over there and we got chewed out because if we didn't spend the money, we wouldn't be reallocated the following.
That's right. Spend it or lose it. It's the
It blew my
dumbest.
mind away. We're talking about $60,000.
Now
This is
take that
just,
times 5,000 departments.
oh, easily.
Yeah,
Easily.
it is. So I handle our federal business for my day job. Have responsibilities for that, and they're our largest customer in the world, the U.S. federal government, actually, and it's tens upon tens upon tens upon tens of millions of dollars, and we actively work on saving them money. That we really do take that approach. We're rolling some things out for the tax side of the world. Unfortunately, I'd have to help participate in getting the tax bills out too, but saving them, $50 million a year on bad postal addresses, as an example, the latest solution we've put out there. But same thing. Hey, you've got to get me this invoice by October. I don't care if it's more. I got to spend this money. And you have these conversations, and you just want to pull your hair out. You're like, good God.
And it was very frustrating, but that's one thing early on that I learned, that this is not a good system.
Yeah.
It's like I thought I was doing a good thing, and here I am getting reprimanded. So I had to go out and buy steaks and lobsters and shrimp. We ate large for a couple weeks.
I bet you did.
But that being said, that was my first glimpse into government. And then of course there was we'd be out on the range, qualifying with our weapons and stuff. And at the end of it, everybody had qualified, but we had all this extra ammo. So we'd have to leave 3, 4, 5 people behind to just blow through all the ammo, just pointlessly just expend all the ammo. And it's budget. And so that's where, and again, this is not the course of the podcast, but
yeah, but no, it's important.
Federal government's budget was 5.8 trillion. I like looking this stuff up for some reason. And we're projected to overspend in 1 year, 2023. We're projected to overspend about 2 trillion on a 5.8 trillion dollar budget, and it's just insanity.
And all they have to do is just look for where they can go under. You trim a little. It doesn't take, cutting 50% of everything. That's what it looks like there. All you got to do is be efficient everywhere, and you can save trillions of dollars because it's across, what is it, 1.6 million employees or something like that in the federal government. It's just,
it's actually, that's a number I looked up recently as well. I want to say it's like 25 million government employees.
That's got to be through associations, subdivisions, and everything. But that's just insane. It's insane. What you do is you put logistics in the hands of Walmart. You put food in the hands of the companies that own Arby's and these places that know how to really move things. Supply chain companies. That's I really think, and we're off topic here a little bit, but put some business leaders in charge of departments in the government, and you could trim this thing up quick. Buffett says I can solve the budget issue in a heartbeat. All you do is you say it's basically if they go over budget, the congressional people don't get paid.
They don't get paid, period.
Yeah. If you don't have a balanced budget amendment and you don't hold to that budget, you don't get paid. You watch how we get back to the $5.7 trillion number overnight.
Absolutely.
Overnight.
It would be instant.
And that's how you have to hold yourself accountable. You can't overspend to keep your employees going, right?
Exactly.
The door's closed. Right. Right. Exactly.
I have to be competitive. There's 800 licensed security companies in North Carolina. We're just one.
Holy cow.
We've got to balance. Then you got the national companies and the DIY stuff. And so you have to balance the budget, but you also have to balance it with your customer. And that's the problem with government, is they really don't have to balance either.
That's right.
We're not a customer. We can't do anything about it other than supposedly vote them out, which I don't even.
That doesn't even work out really well anymore either.
I just looked it up on Statista, by the way.
Yep.
Around now, when I say government employees, I'm talking state, federal, soldiers.
Oh, okay. I was talking federal. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So 19.23 million people. That's just insane. Just the payroll tax on that, I can't even imagine.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So anyway, not to turn this thing negative, but
no, it's not. It's just, hey, it's factual, right? We're just sharing data. Feedback is a gift if they choose to accept it, as I always say.
Sure.
So you finish up the military and you get out, and then what happens?
Oh yeah. So, whoa, we went on a tangent there. So got out of the military and I ended up going into sales for somebody, and it was commission only actually. Fayetteville, North Carolina, typical military town. It's
Yep. Very
your,
familiar with
your
it.
prior military means absolutely nothing
Yep. Because
because
there's about
everybody is.
5,000 coming out a quarter, right?
So long story short is I bounced around a little bit trying to find out what I wanted to do. I did some different things and I tried different things, which I had kids in an early age because the water where I lived was terrible. And so I had this pressure on me, right away to make money.
Yep.
And so I really bounced around under extreme duress. Coming up short on your paycheck when you got kids
Hmm.
involved, there's nothing more emasculating than that, in my opinion.
I agree.
You're trying to be a man, you're trying to take care of your kids, and
You're
you're
supposed to
just
be
not
able to
quite
handle it. Right. Right.
you're not quite making it happen, and it's boy, it's embarrassing. But that being said, I was always willing to work hard. I just needed the opportunity, and I ended up finding a straight commission job in security sales. And I actually left a salaried position because the salary was like 24,000 a year. It was I
Hmm.
don't even know how I lived on that back then, but my side hustles, made it happen. Um, so long story short is I got in security sales and I found a really good niche because I had spent a lot of time prior, I'd say about halfway through the military, and finding the security industry. I found something early on. Uh, Someone said something to me early on. His name was George, and he said the difference between a ditch digger and a billionaire is the way he thinks.
Hmm.
And I really latched onto that and learned that principles are gonna set me apart. Principles. It's not where you start. It's where you finish in this
Finished. Yep.
country.
Yep.
And the principles that you can learn, like the 7 habits of highly effective people and how to
Hmm.
win friends and influence people and
All
think and
great
grow
books.
rich.
Yep.
Like I started getting my hands on the knowledge and I really started diving into these things and making those investments in that $8 book or $10 book when it was very uncomfortable to spend the money. But I was hungry for the knowledge because I was frustrated. I was tired of being broke. And so when I got in the security industry, and some salespeople might be able to, probably not with you guys, but some salespeople might be able to relate to this. I got jack squat for training. I went on 2 sales appointments with a guy named Frank who recruited me to the industry. I went on 2 sales appointments. The first one canceled. It was telemarketing appointments. First one cancels. The second one, he goes in there and we sit. It's a sit, and he sells it, but they had bad credit. And so the next day, I get a little pitch book, and I'm getting some
On your own.
telemarketing leads.
Yeah.
That was my training. And I had probably 6 7 pages in this little book. It was the little plastic sheets
Oh
in a
yeah.
binder.
Yep.
And so I get in my Camaro that the AC stopped working and I couldn't afford it, so I had the T-tops off, thank God. I had a great tan though.
I bet you did. You look good.
Face tan. Face tan anyway.
And
But
your left arm out the window.
yeah,
The left arm
exactly.
is 4 shades darker than the right.
So I'm driving around in North Carolina, chasing down telemarketing appointments. And my first day, I had 4 appointments. They all canceled or no-showed, and so I was very nervous. And the next day, they all canceled or no-showed. And now I'm going to Frank, like, man,
Hey.
I left a salary job for this. I'm burning gas. I can't even get in the door. He's like, man, you just had a bad run, blah blah blah. Next day, I get out there, and my first appointment is a sit, and it's in what's the name of this? It's a little city in southern North Carolina,
Yep.
and
Palmetto
uh,
or somewhere down in there.
it's somewhere. It'll come to me. It'll come to me in a second. But um, anyway, I sit down and I'm going through my pitch book, and someone's actually listening to me. And a little thing that I'll say for someone is, I know that this guy probably knew that I was very new and didn't know a whole lot, but I was going through what I knew and this and that. And he would ask me questions. And I'd say, that's a great question. I want to make sure I don't give you the wrong answer. And I had to do this like 5 different times in the
And that's
house.
okay.
I'd call back then it wasn't a cell phone. I'd uh,
The
call the
office.
toll free number to the
Yep.
office, and I talked to Gil, my manager, and hey, Gil, he wants to know where the monitoring station is. I didn't want to tell him the wrong answer. So I just want to make sure and he would tell me. So the one thing I think I did right was I built rapport.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think the guy knew that I didn't want to tell him something wrong.
Man, you were
And so
transparent and you were humble.
transparent, humble about it. And he bought from me. And that got things started for me. And I was ended up my first full month, I was top 20 in the nation. Um, the
That's
second month,
awesome.
I actually got a little bit of training and I was top 10 in the nation. And then my third month, I helped out our regional manager, who I'm still friends with today. His name's Jim Grimm, great guy out of Texas. He got involved with me and actually taught me how to sell and taught me, the security industry. And I basically went to number one in the nation that in my third
That's
month. And then I,
awesome.
I got promoted to a branch manager spot which came with the salary and cell phone and some different things. But that's what brought me to Raleigh away from Fayetteville and built that office to number one in the nation in 6 months.
That is outstanding. You know, it's so funny. I want to dive in here just a little bit, not to tell a couple of my own stories, but to just first of all, every person that I've had on the Leadership Lounge, this is to the listeners, very similar approaches to life. Not looking for things to be given to them, looking for opportunities, out hustling the other people. My dad used to say, son, I just want you to go through life working half days. You pick which half, 6 to 6 or 6 to 6. You will be successful.
Right.
I've had another person on the show that said their father told them a 40-hour work week keeps you up with the competition. It's the next 10 a week that puts you in front of them. It's all these commonalities. I too had a Camaro that I had to trade in for an Astro van for my 100% commission job to sell copiers and fax machines door to door. And my training was back in the day, we didn't have Google Maps or anything. We had the phone book. And in the phone book came the city map. You'd tear it out and it folded out. It was like an 8-pager folded out. And the owner of my company took a highlighter and highlighted the outskirts of my territory, said, stay inside that line so you don't piss off the other sales reps. Here's a box of cards. Let me know when you need more. That was the training. And you go and you figure it out. Now, I took a copy or small desktop home every night and I demoed, to nobody. Did demonstration skills and worked on it. And my first deal, very similar. I just want to tell this story because it's a true story. Hadn't sold anything. I'm 2 weeks in. I had to draw verses for the first 6 months. So I was getting paid $866.66 every 2 weeks, which equates out to the 24 grand
Mm.
and salary or draw verses. I go in and it's CEC Electric. I still remember it. Manager's name was George, the guy that ran 2 shops. And I brought in a DC 2254. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm going to demonstrate it to him. And you could take the toner bottle out with this little sleeve. That was one of my feature function benefits, is how easy it is to change the toner. And you'd slide the sleeve off the new toner that had a cellophane that would peel off after you slid it in. You'd slide it under the old toner bottle, and then you wouldn't make any mess. And then you'd put the new one in, and you had a little crank, and pull the cellophane off and dump the toner in. I'm halfway through the demo. Things are going pretty good. I got my suit on. This was suit and tie days, right? And it was probably my suit from my high school graduation still, 5 years later. And the add toner light comes on in the middle of the demo. And I'm like, oh gosh. So I turned it into a positive. I'm glad this happened. Let me show you how easy it is to change the toner. And I slide the sleeve underneath and I pull the toner bottle off on it. And I just kind of spin around to show the bottle to the folks. And what had evidently happened is the toner was just caked in the container. It wasn't actually empty. It had just emptied out the auger. And as I swung around, that easy slide on cover slid off with just
Oh,
the inertia of
no.
me spinning, and toner went boof,
Oh my
like
gosh.
Pigpen from the Peanuts cartoons. A cloud of black toner fills the office all over and I've got
Oh my
3
gosh.
assistants, the parts manager, George, the district standing there, and it's just poof. And I go, George, would you happen to have a vacuum? I think it's probably time for me to start working on my demo skills of my next job. And he kind of laughed and he said, everybody go sit down. I finished it all up. I was kind of done. And I get a vacuum and you don't use the push vacuum, you use the handhold and you suck it all up. And I worked on it for 45 minutes. I got it all cleaned up, wiped down the desk around it and everything. And I go in, tail between my legs to George. And I said, you want me to go get it and get it out of here? After that happened, everything, he goes, sit down. And I sat down and he goes, You got paperwork with you? And of course, you always carried a pen and an open contract. And this is when you just handwritten it. One DC 2254, $7,000. That's how long the paperwork took. I go, yes, sir.
Boom.
And he says, write it up. I'm going to buy this from you. And I'm like, man, I really appreciate it. And he goes, listen, son. He goes, I remember being green. And you handled that so well. It was not any fault of yours. And you kept your composure and you were humble. Kind of same thing, right? It was just,
it's wild. It might have helped you close the deal because you did that.
Right. In hindsight, it was. And I kind of figured out, you know what? A little bit of humor, self-deprecating humor. I do a whole podcast episode about 6 months ago on how self-deprecating humor, studies show it. If you have self-deprecating humor, your relationship building skills are like 80% more favorable than if you don't. If you're narcissistic, it's the opposite. Yeah. So it's just funny that you say that for those listening, it's a commonality. Everybody has those stories where a mistake turns into an opportunity because you face it. You don't just, hide from it. You kind of lean into it. So this isn't about me, but it's just so funny. You said Camaro, you said 100% commission, and you didn't know Jack. And I'm sitting there going, I can still see George in the office, big, heavy set guy, beard. And I sold him probably, I bet over the next 5 years, I sold him 20 pieces of equipment. It probably made $10,000 off of George in my pocket over the next few years, which was a lot of money back then. This is 19.
A lot of money right now.
Yeah, exactly. So you had this niche market. You figured out the security thing. How did you get to a point where you decided I'm going to do this on my own? Because that is not that's not an easy decision.
It's I think just when I built the office to number one in the nation, and we were doing millions of dollars a year out of my office. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize back then. That's when I started making good money.
Yep.
Finally, and I didn't realize how much money I was making this company back then. And so, long story short is telemarketing laws changed, the environment changed to where we were basically producing everything on our own, which affected my paycheck, of course, because we weren't doing millions of dollars. We were doing, I guess we were still doing I'd say 150 to 200,000 a month out of my branch. But what happened was I ended up changing companies for someone that had a better opportunity, and then he sold his company. And when that happened, I felt it was the opportunity because it was me. There was a handful of people that I could essentially start a company with.
Gotcha.
So 2004, once we opened that company, we were pretty much kicking butt right out of the gate. We had an installer, we had multiple salespeople, we had people with management experience. So it was pretty much an overnight. We probably came out of the gate doing 50, 60, 70 grand a month worth of business.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's how it started. And then ultimately that ended up, this is where I learned about partnerships and different things, and ended up buying out some people along the way, but then ended up selling the company in 2008. And the partner that I had at the time, I won't say his name, but he got real involved in builder stuff, and he was losing us a lot of money with builders. And then the Great Recession hit.
Oh yeah.
And then we were getting stuck from that. Not only were we losing money,
we weren't getting paid either. Yeah.
About it. Then we stopped getting any money. And then I took several six-figure hit with all these builder accounts that went under, and just didn't pay us for TVs and home audio, and that stuff was super expensive back then.
Very expensive, yeah.
And so I had an opportunity to sell that company and be VP of sales for another company. And there's a lot of lessons learned there that we probably won't have time to go into there. But long story short is about a year into that, it wasn't a good fit. I ended up not getting a bunch of money that was supposed to come to me. And essentially, we worked out a good scenario where I could leave the company and I wouldn't sue them. They wouldn't pursue a non-compete. And so that's when I started IWatch Security in 2010, which I believe I had it before Apple ever did. So I'm going to graciously, not
let them
Apple.
Keep no copyright issues there. Tell you what, that's funny.
I was just going to say the whole thing was kind of I was going to have this eye on the yard sign, but I couldn't come up with a sign that didn't look incredibly creepy. So, I ended up going with the red, white, and blue with the eye, like an eye.
Yep.
And then the tagline was "I watch your home and business, so you don't have to worry."
That's
So,
awesome. The branding's
but
great. I love it. I love it.
yeah, that's the how I started. Basically, got into owning a security company and ownership.
Oh, that's awesome. I was building homes on the side when that all hit. I had
Mm,
several $1 million spec homes up, so I know what you speak of. Now I paid every bill out there, but it took a lot of money out of my
brutal.
pocket. Oh, it was
Yeah,
brutal.
it was a tough time. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
people, we had it again with COVID and lots of heartaches, and that's the thing about and just on my soapbox for a minute, I talk about saving and investing and preparing yourself for the worst. You hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, and it's so critical, especially when you have families and those types of things. Don't make stupid mistakes. Don't be emotional with your money. Be consistent. Pay yourself first, because in every life, I've been around for, I've been on this thing for 56 trips around the sun in January, and I've been through four of them, in my working career. The 90s, the early 2000s, 2008, 9, and COVID. Big hits. Now there's economics up and down, economic up and downs, but big hits, and I've gotten through all of them. But it took a lot, It took a lot. And as a business
Well,
owner, even more so.
well, you have to be prepared for what you can't see coming, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what people say. Well, this happened and this and that. And like, well, you got to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, or I shouldn't speak for anybody, but I could have never predicted a pandemic would actually shut down the economy. But I can prepare for things that I'm not prepared for by
Mm-hmm.
saving money and by running the company and not being too aggressive with finances and not buying the Ferrari when you can qualify for it and things like that.
That's right.
Um, and we didn't lay off anybody through COVID
That's a
as a small
great
business
story.
owner.
That's a
And
great
so,
story.
it was a battle, it was a scrap, and I'll be honest, I didn't pay myself for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time at some points. But you do what you got to do to take care of your good people, and I believe that a majority of people will remember that stuff and value that loyalty that I show to them.
That's
And
awesome.
we've got a bunch of long-term employees with the company, so
That's a testament to your leadership. That's a testament to your leadership, you
got to
know?
look out for your people. And I've always said my number one customer is my employee.
Yep. That's a great way to look at it. They're the lifeblood, right? Without them, you can't do it. With them, you can strive and do great things. So and I know there's some things that you want to make sure we touch on here today too, and I've got a couple of those things that we discussed written down. But then how did you get into the brand Ascent media side of the business? So that's on social media, helping people with their brands, those types of things. How did that come about out of being in the security business?
That's the one thing that I realized over the years, as you continue to learn and grow. And I'm real big on self-awareness. I want to develop the highest level of self-awareness that I can to learn, the Anthony Robbins. Why do we do the things we do?
Yep.
Why do extremely ethical people lie? You got to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I love about business is I love building a brand. A
Mm-hmm.
brand is very personal to me. So I love the marketing. I love the branding. I love the strategy. I love the 50,000-foot view of business. What I don't enjoy is the frontline customer service,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the QuickBooks,
Mm-hmm.
filing taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is not fun for me. I'm not an administrative person, but I am a good brand builder. And so, that's really where that came from, was just wanting to help people. Uh, how do you as a small business owner, you can market yourself right out of business. You can spend money on commercials and not get a return on investment. There's no shortage of ways to advertise your business that are incredibly ineffective. And as a small business owner, you have to find out how do you get new customers? How do you serve more people so you can make more
How
money
do you
and grow your
grow? Yeah.
business?
How do you grow? Yeah.
Well, then there's social media, and then there was, Google AdWords, and there's podcasting, and there's all these things outside of the box that, you know what, it was door to door at one point. Then it was television at one point. Before that it was radio. Then came the yellow pages with phones and
Mm-hmm.
telemarketing.
Mm-hmm.
So marketing continues to evolve, and that's something that's exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing I love about my security company is the branding and marketing of it. So that's what started the inspiration to start that.
It's a great tie-in, attribution, which you understand, I'm sure, is inside brand Ascent Media. What you're stating there is you can spend money that you can't attribute any growth to, and then so big companies spend lots and lots of money for attribution data.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks that Google is the reason that somebody came to their webpage. That may not have been it at all. It could have been a billboard. It could have been word of mouth. It could have been looking online at the company's own website before they submit. They might have Googled it, but it could have started as a Facebook ad that inspired them. It could have started as something on another social media platform, Instagram or whatever is the case, TikTok. And to be able to know what to attribute the successful media campaign to versus the unsuccessful one, people will spend big money on that, because instead of throwing more money at Google as an example because they think it's attributable to them, it's not. It's attributable to 3 layers up. They need to do not yellow pages, but other whatever the other ad is. Spend more on Facebook. It might have been Facebook was the impetus, and then it went through Google, and that's how they got to them. Google's the last mile many times, but it's just interesting that you bring that up. We have marketing services also inside of my organization. I have an entire group that concentrates on that and helps people build around brand and things like that. We do the color printing, we do the communication, right? So it's just a natural tie-in for us. It's a small division, but we do several, $8-10 million a year out of it here in the States. And we partner with big companies to help on that attribution journey. There's some real cool stuff. Remind me when we're talking next time, I'll put you in alignment with looking up at this one particular company that I think you'd really enjoy, especially with the brand Ascent Media that you do. And then you went out of that, and now you're doing a podcast. And then I want to talk about kind of some of the things we discussed earlier. But as I said in the kickoff, you have the 5 Things podcast, and the episode that caught my eye was dating advice for dudes, and then getting your business started, and running a restaurant, I think was a great tie-in. And you have other people come on and tell us a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, I love podcasting. I love learning and sharing. And I think part of it is, and the one thing that I'd love to tell your audience, one of the biggest things I think that I regret not doing at a younger age is finding yourself a mentor, someone you can learn from. There's an old saying, if you're going to follow, kind of a military saying, if you're going to go through a minefield, follow somebody.
Mm-hmm. That's a great,
there's no reason
a great
to blow
analogy.
a leg off if someone knows the route. So having a mentor is a really important thing. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, Brent. What was the question?
I was just saying so tell us about the podcast, and you were just saying that you love, right. Learning and things. Yeah.
So just an opportunity to share and help people. And, I mentioned I like to look things up. I looked something up the other day. How many millionaires are there in the United States? There's almost 22 million millionaires in the United States.
It can be done.
And so it can definitely be done. And, I would say a majority of those are probably self-made.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so the journey that I've taken, unfortunately, there's been a lot of mistakes that I've made, which we might all be able to say that to an extent, but I didn't really have any guidance growing up. I've kind of been out here just figuring things out on my own and doing things on my own and making mistakes. And, John Maxwell, you win or you learn. So I just keep going forward. But I just want to share. And I find most people that have achieved some success, like I love Ray Dalio. He's doing a lot of content now about just trying to share his wisdom. And I find a lot of people are willing to share if they've been there because they just want to help people.
Pay it forward.
And
that's what this was about. That's what I call it out on my website, is that I'm just trying to pay it forward a little bit, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. It's great. It's great. Helping others. I didn't mean to interrupt
there's so much fine tuning that we can be doing as individuals, but you have to start with that self-awareness. You have to start with some humility. Even the people that have it all figured out, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I have to learn. And I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza fan. I'll be at a week-long course here in November, and he says all the time, he says, your personality creates your personal reality. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people could probably learn is that our personalities can develop. It's you're not that way because you're Italian. You know what I mean? It's you can change that. You
That's
can
a
be
controllable.
less angry,
That's a controllable.
or you can
That's
be
right.
not to. I've got some Italian in me, so
Yeah,
I'm
it's
using
okay.
myself
I
as a
understand what you're saying.
stereotype, I have Italians writing me mad at me here or something.
It's all good.
But got Martinelli in my background. But it's things that if I'm analytical or I'm critical, these are natural things for me, I can fine tune those things to create better results with relationships around me, because you're only as good as your relationships are.
I agree.
In business and stuff. So if I can do things to fine tune my personality to be more likable, to be more charismatic, to develop more loyalty, these are all things that I work on regularly to make sure that I'm communicating with my young technicians, for example, who messed up. How to communicate to them more effectively so that when they do something that they, is kind of boneheaded, we learn that I'm not
experience.
Responding
right.
with any anger because this is going to cost me $3,000. I'm responding with empathy. I'm responding with care, but I'm also firm that, we can't do this. This is the process, and this is why we have the processes that we do to avoid these types of things.
So go ahead.
It's a balance.
Yeah,
it's a learning process for sure.
So it's just a couple comments there for my feedback. I agree 110% with everything you're saying. How you don't make mistakes is through experience, but how you gain experience is through making a lot of damn mistakes. And so it's this cycle. And the other thing that came to mind is years ago we had this bell curve called and it was called the 4 quadrants. So you had the unknowing and unexperienced, and then it went up and you were the knowing unexperienced, and then it went to the left and you were the experienced but unknowing, and then so it went around this quadrant. Basically, the bottom right one was super green, the upper right one was you were starting to get it, the upper left one is you maybe didn't have certain skills, and then the bottom one is you had it all figured out. Well, the thing is the world changes. It's like you said about the security business. Telemarketing laws changed. Suddenly how you go about doing business changed. My world has changed because it's all digital, electronic communications, those types of things have happened. So you can be someone that in your life today, in my example is in that bottom left quadrant, you got it all figured out. You don't need a lot of help. But what's the business going to look like 3 years from now? You move back to the lower right quadrant in life over and over again. It's a cycle because the one thing that's consistent is change. It's going to keep coming, and you have to be willing to be to self-diagnose that you don't got it all figured out again. And that's hard for people for a lot of people, once they've seen success, narcissism starts to come into play, right? Ego starts to come into play. And if you can't manage those and keep those under control and understand that the cheese has moved, you're going to struggle. And so humility, being empathic, which you mentioned, empathetic, depending on however you want to say it, is great too. That's how you lead. That's how you create, that boneheaded move, and how you handled it creates great fellowship for you or followership for you. That technician now looks at you and understands that, hey man, he could have taken a pound of flesh out of me, but instead he turned it into some knowledge. We all have the touch the stove moments. Damn, that's hot. I'm not going to do that again. He had a touch the stove moment, and you didn't scream and holler. You said, now you understand why I say don't touch the stove, right? It costs us $3,000. It's okay. But let's not do that again. Now the expectation is that lesson's been learned. That should be a solid one going forward, right? Yeah, right. And the rest is history. So, good
and take
stuff.
that moment to drill in. We have SOP, standard operating procedures.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
A lot of times, I'm gonna reiterate things you guys may not understand that we're hardcore about.
This
are
is the
because of
why.
circumstances and events that you haven't experienced.
That's right.
So
This is
now
the
you've
why.
experienced this one because you violated the SOP or the way we do things. Understand that's why we have these SOPs.
Yeah, guess
So
what?
hopefully
I
it
did it too.
reinforces
Yeah,
the way
12.
we do things across the board.
Yeah, I did it 12 years ago. That's why it's in the SOP, you know?
Yeah, we've made these mistakes,
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
seen other companies make these mistakes,
Yep.
or heard of other employees making these mistakes.
Yep.
So,
What?
I'd rather gain wisdom from somebody else's mistake, and that's comes
Oh,
back to the
isn't that true?
podcast. I love good conversations. I love tough conversations, which I haven't found many people to get into the tough conversations online yet, but that's something I'd love to start doing more of, to be honest.
Well, we had a wonderful thing back to the governmental situation, right? We have an inept group. What's going on with one party right now trying to find a leader? It's embarrassing for the country, not picking a side here. But discourse was huge. You go back to the Reagan era, and Tip O'Neill and Reagan were polar opposites on theory on how to get there, but they'd have discourse and they'd figure out how to get something in the middle that would move the thing forward, and they'd have tough conversations. And it's okay to have these tough conversations because I don't think I'm very convicted in what my thoughts and beliefs are, but I'm open minded to discuss it. Prove to me that I shouldn't feel this way is how I approach it, not just shut it down. You have this whoever screams loudest is the winner. And I've always said, increasing the volume of your voice does not increase the value of your position ever.
Definitely. Right.
And it's crazy to find. But so you talked about some early inspirations, and you've talked about some. It looks like or sounds like you do a lot of reading, which is awesome. If you were to circle back and look back to Brian Smith at a younger age, what would you tell your younger self about business these days?
Well, that's a great question. The mentor would be huge. Find
Yeah,
yourself
yeah,
who has in life what you want, and do whatever you can to get in their orbit. Whether it's working with them, whether it's buying them lunch, whether it's hey, I'll mow your lawn to get an hour with you.
yep,
It's well worth it, and I think that takes humility and. But somebody like that is probably going to see that you're so hungry, they'll make time for you.
mm-hmm.
But the reading, the growing, working on your wealth mentality, I think is a
That's
huge
great.
thing at a young age. And there's so much to expand on each one of these topics, but
Mm-hmm.
learning to strive for discomfort is a huge thing. I just got an ice bath here recently, and I'm looking forward to doing some of those. But striving for discomfort, if you're in sales, for example, and you're uncomfortable cold calling, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact you're going and making yourself do it will pay off in so many different ways. That's something that
Lean into it. Yep.
I could have been much more uncomfortable early on in life, and it would have paid
Dividends. Pays dividends.
dividends
Yep.
rather than finding something I was good at and staying in that lane.
I say to my salespeople about this. This is a great comment that you've brought up in commentary. They say, I don't know what to ask the customer. Whatever would make you most uncomfortable is probably the best question to ask, because it's going to inspire or create movement, either to the no or to the yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you aren't burning valuable time invaluably. Discomfort is a great point there.
Yeah, take things head on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. The older you get, I think the more direct you get, or
I would
speaking
agree
for
with that.
myself
Yep,
anyway.
I would agree with that.
I just want to confront it. Let's get it on the table. Let's have the conversation, and I'm really going to listen to you. Seek first to understand.
Mm-hmm.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Try to really understand if we're talking sales, try to really understand your customer's situation. I think good salespeople are really good listeners.
Two
I think
ears,
there's a
one mouth.
misconception
Yep.
that you're a good talker.
Yep. 2 ears, one
Uh,
mouth. Use them in proportion.
so they'll tell you how to sell them. They'll tell you what they want and what they need. And when you really engage with a client, don't think about, I need to make a sale. Think about, what problems can I solve for this client? What
Bingo.
issues are they having that I can help with? How can I add value to this fellow human being? And the money will take care of itself.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see. I would have. I learned sales and persuasion pretty early on in life, but anybody should be learning sales and persuasion stuff because there's sales in everything you do. There's leadership in sales and persuasion, trying to get a job,
Hmm.
trying to date somebody, trying to, advance in a corporate environment. So the
It's
art
in
of
everything.
persuasion
Yeah,
is
yeah,
definitely important to learn.
that's great. What would you tell? Well, go ahead. You were starting to
I
say
was going to
something.
say, in terms of picking a business, things are coming to mind here. In terms
Yeah.
of picking a business, make sure you begin with the end in mind. What does this look like? I meet a lot of people that are self-employed and they're trying out a business, and I can tell from talking to them in 5 minutes they don't quite understand what they're trying to do yet.
Hmm.
Like, where are you going to be in 10 years? What's the goal here? What does best case scenario look like? And a lot of times they haven't really thought that stuff through. Um, so that's another thing. Begin with the end in mind, whatever you're going after.
I think that's a great idea too. Great concept. What would you tell somebody coming out of college today? First of all, I hope you got a degree that pays more than what the loan that you took out requires.
Yeah, someone coming out of college, I would say, now you get to start learning.
That's awesome.
I think that I saw a video recently. It was a girl talking about how she can't find a marketing job that pays more than her waitress job, and she's kind of complaining about it, kind of that stereotypical young mind entitled mindset,
Yep.
which I know not everybody's like that, and I don't, I say that without, I'm
You
not the
hate
boomer that
putting them all
bashes
together, but
millennials,
yeah, but
but
it's
there
a
is there
propensity there.
is listening to that person. Here's the mistake she's making. Yes, you can make more as a server right now,
Hmm.
but you may have to take a step backwards to get your foot in the door to work your way up, because just because you went to college doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
Hmm.
It doesn't even mean you're going to be a good employee. It might mean you're just too focused on yourself and your vacation days and what you can get from the
That's
corporation
right. What's in it for
versus
me?
what you can
Yeah,
add to the
that's
corporation.
right.
So I think humbling yourself, and maybe you keep that waitress job, but it's part-time and on
Hey, you
the
do it on
evening, so
Saturdays.
your
Yeah.
income doesn't take a hit, but you take that entry-level marketing job that pays less. But now you get to prove yourself. Now you get some experience. Now you get to learn on the job, and then get around the most successful people in your field and sponge, just get
Soak it
around them and
in.
pick their
Yep,
brain.
that's
And
right.
what would you do if you were in my position? How would you be approaching this situation?
Watch and listen and ask lots of questions. Lots and lots of
Absolutely.
questions.
And work your butt off. Be committed to the organization. Be committed to your peers. Make If I started in a corporate job, which I've literally never been in, I guess the military was kind of corporate, but
Yeah, a little bit.
I want to make my supervisors look as good as possible. I want them to know that the thing that really sucked in the military, but it was a compliment in hindsight, was I would get things dumped on me all the time because they knew
They
I
could
would
count on you.
handle it and see it
Right.
through. You want to be that person in the organization, because they're when times get lean and maybe there's layoffs, the economy hits, you're going to be the one that's indispensable. They're not letting go of you.
I say to so every year, I've been in corporate leadership for going on 29 years. I've been in this business for going on 34 years. I've had 34 different pay plans, and I've had 34 quotas that have gone up every year. I've never had somebody come and say, "Hey, we're going to pay you more next year, but we'd really like you to do less." And the thing that,
That sounds about right.
yeah, and I go and every year, give a great example. Last year, I had one of my best hitters. His quota went from, let's arbitrary numbers, $2.5 million to $4 million. First of all, he had some upgrades that were coming that were helping float that up, but also my plan went up a bunch from a corporate standpoint. To get to $1 billion worth of revenue, which I'm responsible for, a lot of that service revenue and things, you, it's a big number. And we have less people than we used to because we did downsize a little bit through COVID. But I said, if I was a basketball coach, I give the ball to the scorers.
Definitely.
I can't make this number by giving it to the Skippy rep. No offense to the Skippy rep. I can't make
Sure.
this number by somebody that's been at 85% of plan their whole life. And I said to him, his name's Matt, and he's a frequent listener. You're going to make more money than you've ever made. And he just absolutely destroyed it. last year, and new deals. And at the end of the year, he's sitting there, and guess what? I come to him with the quota that's a little bit bigger, not bigger than his quota last year, nowadays actuals. And he was complaining again. I go, let's just look at the tape. Look at what you're able to do when you just quit worrying about it. It's natural. I love the pushback. That's the salesperson in them, right? They're trying to make a change on me. But it's like, no, sorry, that's the number. Go get them. And I had to do that to 15, 18 people this year. And guess what? We're going to be a plan. And it's a great point. And I can tell just from listening to you that you are a person that needs to be given the ball, right? Don't feel like they're always dumping on you. That's the lesson you're given there, because they don't like you. They're dumping on you because they respect you, they appreciate you, and they need you. That is a really,
take it as a compliment.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the mindset, right? You can have the mindset of woe is me, or you can have the mindset of, give me the ball. And I like people that want the ball.
Michael Jordan wanted the ball at the end of the game. That's
exactly
that's a
right.
compliment.
That's exactly right. And he missed 9,000 shots. And he missed 9,000 shots, but he still wanted the ball.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They don't remember the ones you miss as often as the ones you make.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But you get into the Hall of Fame in baseball by only hitting 3 out of 10 times.
That's true.
So crazy stuff. What else did you want to touch on? Because I know we're bumping up on time here, and just great feedback, but I know you had a couple things you wanted to make sure you got to. It's been amazing to hear your journey. We could talk for days, and we'll probably we're going to do this again.
You're a great host, by the way, Brian. You definitely got one of those radio voices. I can see why this is probably comes easy for you, but I would say that's probably it. I mean, we're probably bumping up on our time here, but it was just a great honor to spitball with you on the phone here and talk about some stories and stuff. And
we'll do it again too, because we could pick a topic. We could pick a topic and go real deep. And I know you and I are talking about a reciprocal thing we're here. Maybe I'll join yours. Now, I appreciate the compliment on the voice for radio. I've been told I also have a face for radio. So yours is a video based one. So we'll see. I'll have to shine this penny up if I'm fortunate enough to get that invite. But it's I appreciate the compliment. I enjoy. I said to you kind of laughing beforehand. I'm always interested in what I have to say. Right. I try to not infringe on your time too much, but it just brings stories and content that I've shared before, and just to the listeners, look at Brian Smith as something you want to carbon copy. Not everything in his life. He's made mistakes. He said that. But listen to the core concepts he gave. Work hard. Be a listener. Engage. Be willing to make mistakes. Be humble. Have that work ethic that outperforms the others. Be willing to take some risks, but manage risks. Care for your family. Be a good family person. I know he's a great father. Sean, who introduced us, he talked about earlier, has made mention that there's just not anybody better out there. And we've had 4 or 5 conversations now, and every one of them has gone this way, where it's just kind of a natural thing for us. We have a lot of thought processes that work the same. You're successful. I think I've done an okay job too. And those concepts are core across everybody. Don't look at the books that Brian mentioned, or that I bring up, or other people to listen to or check out, as those people just got lucky. No, man, there is a common criteria that they are following. There are SOPs that have led to great successes by a lot of these people out there. There's millions of millionaires. Think of that. You can do it. And the reason you can do it is all of you out there, you're awesome. Keep that shit up. Talk next week.